Did anyone get a chance to have a glance at this article? I know I uploaded a little bit late. Anyone have a chance to look at it? No problem, Kim. It's not that urgent. Michelle, any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I think they believe that. I mean, Summers is he's got a long history with the brand as well. I just think they think he's going to be the messiah as well, considering his age and things. I don't know if it's the right choice.
Well, he's only 55, isn't he?
No, he's not. Summers should be entering at least like he's a pensioner, so.
No, man, 55-year-old. Oh, no, it's a 55-year-old retailer. Oh, no. Yeah, no, he is a pensioner because he took pension about 16, 17 years ago. You're right, boy. You're right.
Yeah.
Have a glance at that picture. Yeah, no, you're right. It's the retailer that was 55 years old the other day. Have a glance at that picture. What is the image that that picture portrays? What are they trying to say just with that picture? And I'm not going to worry about rough and tough, all of that nonsense. What image does that suggest?
I would say old school, so.
Old school, hardcore,
yeah.
Hardcore. Anyone else?
Mafia.
Confident. Yeah. Mafia.
I was going to say that, like a Russian person.
Action man. You think of these old style gangster gangster guys in a suit. Now, I found it quite interesting, in particular in terms of some of the theories that we had looked at from the great man perspective. Because when you look at that, you get the impression, yeah, I might think twice if I had to tangle with him. And then you see the actual picture of what he looks like. That I could moor in a bar fight, I can tell you that right now. The other oak I might think twice tackling in a bar. Why the difference in pictures, guys? Why that picture? Right now, when Pick n Pay is in serious trouble, that oak I might think twice. This oak I'm thinking, dude, you're going down. Shame, I'm teasing. The media, but what else in terms of that big tough man, the great man syndrome? Why would Pick n Pay use to release that picture, or choose to release that picture?
Doc, I think considering their current position on the market in terms of leadership, they need somebody who stands out, be it not necessarily in a negative. If you look at Sean Summers, he has quite a pedigree behind his name. So him looking a bit rugged like this, like a mafia, clearly he's coming to take over the reins, and then whoever comes against him, heaven help you. That's
I think so. It's a good comment. But I think sometimes when these pictures are posted, the company has a lot to do with these decisions, because you have to almost approach and get permission, and because if you read some of the content in here, I mean, he's been interviewed, and I think this picture was specifically selected when you read the detail around it, and I love the reference to the to Whitey Basson, which was checkers, but it's the notion that I think sometimes these pictures are chosen very specifically. Often in a time of crisis, you need the look of somebody who can fix things. You need the look of somebody that's tough, that's been burnt a couple of times and that has stood up from a couple of knockdowns. Where this is the more rational look in terms of the word that somebody else looked earlier. I mean, this guy looks like a gentleman. He looks like the kind of CEO that would be there when all is sorted, serious brain in his head, and the kind of individual that you want from a analytical, logical, let's see what the numbers show us. But this guy is ready to get into the ring with checkers, because the big issue is checkers. One of my favorite comments here, and I don't know if it's in the same article, is how checkers is eating their lunch. I don't know if anyone had seen it in this article, how checkers is eating their lunch. It's or taking their lunch money, and it is such a dig at them. Let's just see very quickly. I don't know if checkers taking pick and pay lunch money, eating their lunch. I can't remember what the Okay, I read an article, but the essence of it is that they're eating their lunch, and Checkers has grown significantly, and we need someone back that the retailer can trust. To be brutally honest with you, oh, he's 70. My apologies. I don't set foot in a Pick n Pay anymore. I've been offended by their pricing structures. I've been offended by the entire notion that they couldn't care about the customer. The attitude has become, well, tough luck if you don't buy from us. And I know that some of you have also stopped using Pick n Pay for exactly the same reason. And the truth is, Checkers is hitting them where it hurts, and it's hitting them in their share prices. It is hitting them in terms of their customer satisfaction ratings, but it's also hitting them in terms of their market share. And Pick n Pay, at some point, the biggest market share now, is clinging to the little bit of market share that they still have. Who here still regularly uses Pick n Pay? Debs, what the hell, guys? Oh no, meat I only buy from Woolworths. I only get Woolies meat. But that's it. It's often just because the location. The closest shops to me are Pick n Pay and Woolworths, and I would rather go to the Woolworths. I would rather, in fact, I think Woolworths is cheaper than Pick n Pay. I really think, even for the non-special offers, I think Woolworths is cheaper than Pick n Pay. Meat has nothing to do with being a doctor. Meat has to do with being Afrikaans. As you Afrikaans is, guys, I'm telling you, you know your quality meat. You know your steak you know your rump steak from your fillet steak, and you know things about meat and how to cook meat. And you also know what boerewors is and what's not boerewors. So The truth is, it's got nothing to do with the drr. It has to do with being Afrikaans, I think. Guys, so why those two articles in terms of what we're doing tonight? And it, for interest's sake, also ties back quite cleverly to what we did in terms of critical leadership last week. These articles were slightly less offensive than the ones I shared last week, but it certainly evoked quite a bit of discussion, which I quite enjoyed. And when we go back to some of the stuff that we looked at, that essentialism, where leadership is the syndrome of individuality, when we look at that picture there, it's almost, here becomes the person who will be our Messiah. This is our Savior. And Sean has, I mean, Summers has saved them in the past, and he definitely saved them 16 years ago or prior to when he got there, because they were in exactly the same position as they are now. The key difference, I think, and the key reason why we still support Pick and Pay is location, location, location. They seem to be located in the right places. But the simple truth is he has got a tough job ahead. But it ties in, that picture for me ties, and maybe I read way too much into things. Guys, remember also, I'm not a marketer, so I have no idea about what companies try and present, but I tend to look at things slightly differently, and also very much through this critical leadership set of glasses, because I don't accept things at face value anymore. Certainly, it links to that essentialism. The second one is this romanticism, the way that Summers is perceived as coming to rescue us. The guy, not on the white horse in this instance, but on his Harley Davidson, arriving and slaying the dragon that is Checkers. Geez, I should start narrating children's stories. And there was the dragon. Its name was Checkers. Oh, dear Lord, help me. Oh, guys, you deserve such a more professional lecturer. I really think you should demand to have someone else. Honestly, I should not drink before class. It will also make a massive difference in how these classes go. Guys, and then dualism, I think the reality is leader versus follower. The truth is, I think this Summers guy is going to have to spend a lot of time with people in the organization. This is not a one-man rescue mission. He has to look at people who have lived through the tough times. He has to spend time with those individuals that have bled with Pick and Pay. Guys, and then just, we know that the rest I asked you to look at. The one thing I also wanted to talk about is the fact that he manages, that picture is very careful in terms of managing the way he is perceived. And I know we touched on that last week as well. So if we look then at slides, we're moving on, and we had touched on it very, very basically at the beginning. It is about strategy, and it is about the role of leadership in strategy, in particular, in this instance, what this man is going to try and do in turning Pick and Pay around. So if we look at Summers, there are already a couple of things that he is suggesting that he wants to do. The first thing that I quite like is this notion that they believe great brands don't die. Now, if you think of that as a strategy, is that enough for a strategy to succeed? Great brands don't die? Never, ever. Give me examples of great brands that have died. Nokia has died. They're barely on life support at this stage. Kodak is not even on life support. Kodak now tries to Kodak now tries to sell cryptocurrency, and their cryptocurrency is worth zero. So if you go try and buy cryptocurrency Kodak, its value is absolutely zip, nada, nilts, zilch, zero. Does Tupperware not exist anymore? Oh gosh. I better not tell my wife that she'll go into depression for weeks because I'm not allowed to touch her Tupperware. Tupperware exists. Debs, do you sell Tupperware? Oh dear Lord, there are two things that will get me killed in this
No,
house.
sir, I just buy the Tupperware. One of my best friends sells it. But I think it was Tupperware overseas somewhere that closed, but not here in South Africa.
Okay. Yeah, there are two things that will get me killed. Number one is using my wife's Tupperware. Number two, a very close second to that, cheating on my wife. So it's safer to cheat on my wife than use my wife's Tupperware. That's I've realized. Oh gosh, I'm being recorded here. So if we, oh dear gosh, you guys deserve so much better, guys. So in terms of some of the stuff that they're already looking at from a strategy perspective, the first one there is this, and if this doesn't open, I'm going to start crying, much like I did when my wife caught me using a Tupperware and beat the living snot out of me. So the first bit of strategy that had embarked on ages ago is to upgrade their distribution. It does definitely needs another relook at, and you'll see that that will be one of the first things that will be attended to. The second one is the fact that when we think of where your CEO operates, he is responsible directly. Yeah, I know they have, boy. Their systems are dated. Their cold chain, my apologies, often gets interrupted. So you often end up with fruit that is less than fresh. And, you know, they claim to be always fresh in terms of everything they deliver. Everyone remembers the chicken fiasco from about 8-9 years ago within Pick and Pay as well. So if we think of where the CEO has to deliver, obviously in terms of the share prices, and then the kinds of things that we look at, this idea that there is very little chance of error, because if you are this far back, great brands will die. So in terms of his appointment, what people do from a strategy perspective is he has very, very clear turnaround plans. So when we think of strategic management and operating as a leader at a strategic level, your job is, in terms of what Pick and Pay is at least, is to rescue Pick and Pay. So the turnaround plans are there. Unfortunately, this article is for subscribers only. Guys, can I see who subscribes to Pick and Pay? Subscribes to News 24? If you do, there is an article, or just click on it and see how much of the article you can see. So turnaround plans. So there will be clear turnaround plans. And then you'll see some of the other stuff that is planned in turning the organization around. Okay, I'm sorry, man, guys. Yeah, I do it because I set these exams. In particular, I just set the exams for this subject as well. So, guys, let's have a glance at tonight's bits and pieces. So when we think of strategy for me is a game plan. It is a way of positioning yourself from a corporate level in terms of making sure that we have the right combination of businesses, that we are in the right businesses, that we essentially maximize. Oh, very, very cool. Thank you, Debs. Let me open that. Oh, that is so, so cool. Oh, Debs, that's brilliant. Guys, please have a glance at that. Oh my gosh. I don't know why I lecture. I should just give this over to you guys to do. In future, guys, can you just get together, look at the slides and share information? I don't really need to be here. And you can already see that there are very, very clear plans in place in terms of trying to survive. They don't offer great value. What is service like at Pick n Pay at the moment? I must admit, the staff are very friendly. I've never had issues with staff at Pick n Pay. And then efficiencies. Their costs are too high. And then obviously their profit margins have gone. Yeah, it's very good. It's not Woolworths good, but it is good. Very, very clear plans in place, guys. Have a glance at that. That might be a little bit older, but it also shows you where they're at, that their updates on their website are older. Oh, the app is better than Checkers and Dash. I didn't know that. I honestly, I've never ever used any of those, the Checkers 660 stuff, guys. I've never ever used any of that. So the focus here is about making sure that we get to synergies, that we maximize our core competitiveness, etc., in terms of making a difference in our customers' lives. In terms of the strategy that we expect at the highest level, it is the overall direction. You will remember that every organization should have a vision, some sort of mission statement, and then we break the mission statement into long-term objectives, and those long-term objectives often act or will act as the endpoints for your grand strategies, and these are the brand strategies that we talk about. And you guys will remember from third year strategies like product development, market development, related and unrelated diversification. You'll also remember forward and backward vertical integration. You'll remember horizontal integration, and then you'll remember retrenchment and turnaround and those kinds of strategies. All of those are the responsibilities in the organization. A lot of what Pick n Pay will go through would be around the turnaround strategy stuff, bringing back efficiencies, focusing around efficiencies, looking at their supply chain, focusing on making sure that customers come back because of service, because of prices. And the only way you can do that is because of efficiencies. The second one is to look at the scope of your organizational activities. I think what Pick n Pay will do is they will transition many of their stores across to their cheaper options. So a lot of the Pick n Pays have attempted to start looking like Woolworths, and if you're going to look like Woolworths, you're going to have Woolworths prices, and you're not competing at that level all the time. So they're looking at Pick n Pay Red and some additional options in terms of a lower end type store, although it is still really, really pleasant to be in, but it will provide a lot of efficiencies. And then it's about competitive advantage, and you'll see these words come through in every one of those Pick n Pay articles. Everything from price to quality to the speed of service to product innovativeness to style and design. So, Debs, when you look at who is using the app, which is the Pick n Pay app, Debs?
It's ASAP, sir.
What is it called?
ASAP.
ASAP.
Yes.
If you look at ASAP in terms of price, quality, speed, product innovativeness, style, how many of those boxes does it tick?
I think for me, it ticks all the boxes. They deliver much faster. The app is user friendly. Quality is much better than Checkers. Like fruit and those kind of things is much better than Checkers. And in relation to Dash or Woolies, Woolies have to wait very long for my things. I don't get like smart shopper points, for example, so I can't turn my cash back into anything. And then there's like Pick n Pay. Pick n Pay
Okay.
has the liquor store online as part of the app as well. So if, for example, we're having a party at work or whatever we're doing, then I would quickly
Okay.
organize that from my app, and it delivers like very quickly. I don't have an issue. Checkers for me, they customize your app according to what you usually buy, and that is annoying because I don't want to look at what I usually buy. I want to look at what specials you have. So yeah.
What the needs in your cupboard is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who has never used any of these online purchase and delivery apps? Because I feel there's a generational gap here, and I'm pretty sure that I'm about 3 times Deborah's age. Who has never used any of these delivery apps? Joanne, yeah, I'm pretty sure also a lot older than Joanne.
No,
Mine is just an age issue.
Yeah, I think it's an age issue because I'm not that far from you, so it's not. It's definitely an age issue.
Joanne, you're not 60 years old. I can promise you that.
I'm 10 years younger. I'm close.
You're a baby, man. You can still have babies.
No, hell no.
All these 50-year-olds who think they're old. I sound like a. Oh my gosh! Well, I am. I sound like a. I sound like a geriatric. I certainly am not a geriatric guy. Unfortunately, that number I can't change, but I certainly am not old yet. Well. Yeah, but it is quite interesting because I've never used any of those. Yeah, Joanne's also not used. Mbuso, we don't live in the sticks like you do, Boya. We live in real town, so we don't have to use Spar. Oh, that's so rude, Mbuso. You need to report me immediately. But I know where Mbuso lives, so I'll just go to his house and beat him with a stick. Mbuso, Spar, I've never ever used Spar. Sorry, guys. I know I've known Mbuso for so long. I'm allowed to be horrible to him. Okay, guys, and then obviously we look at our resources, our competencies, and again, it's essential that Pick n Pay has a moment of reflection. I think they've lost what they're good at. I think they've lost. Oh gosh, do you work for Spar? Promoting your employer. Guys, I think there must be some sort of marks deducted for conflict of interest. How much should we take off every one of Mbuso's assignments for conflict of interest and promoting Spar? Can we have class consensus on that? I think 50%. Is that about a fair thing for conflict of interest in this class? Oh dear Lord. Are you in the same? Are you guys already failed because you are in that group, Lishal? So you don't even have to submit. You guys have already failed.
I'm glad we are recording this.
Okay, guys, I think Pick n Pay. You can record, boy. Oh, is that you talking, Buso? Buso, how long have you been with me? Do you think I care about a recording? Guys, to just say, I mean, I think Pick n Pay have lost what their resources are and what their competencies are. I think they've lost track completely. And I think sometimes arrogance in an organization is a dangerous thing. And then lastly, the values and expectations of those stakeholders. I'm picking on them a little bit because they have gone backwards. But as a customer or as an ex-customer, there is definitely a deficiency there. Having said that, not everyone shares my point of view on Pick and Pay. Guys, if we then look at where strategy comes from, it is about strategic planning. And you will remember, anyone who has been part of a strategic planning session, what goes into it. Has anyone ever been part of an organization's strategic planning sessions? What goes into it, Deborah? Do you enjoy that? What part of it? Tiang, what do you guys enjoy? Lishelle, what do you enjoy about it? Debs?
So I think that from our side, what I base my information is usually a SWOT analysis, and that will take it broadly. But usually what strategy comes into is probably with the vision and mission, and then realigning the goals and objectives of the company. So what was our 3-year goals? What is our 5-year? What have we achieved? Where are we? What's the progress? And that's very exciting. So that's what I enjoy. And then just setting new targets.
Very, very cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
The other thing that's really changing, that's really disruptive
Very,
now
very
is
cool.
AI.
Yeah, because
So, yeah.
oh, without a single shadow of a doubt. And also, strategic plans cannot last for 5 years into the future anymore. If you're in certain industries, you almost have to do your strategic planning every year. Tiang, what did you guys do? The same thing? Shame, I bullied Tiang today as well. I remember that. I think she asked me an irritating question. Yeah.
You're forgiven. It's cool. I worked on the marketing and communication
Oh, you have to buy me
strategy.
Castle Lights, otherwise you're not forgiven.
Please check your door. It's been delivered, sir.
Okay. Oh, has it there? Fantastic. Okay. So
So at
this is
my
how you pass
workplace,
my assignments, guys. Castle Lights.
there we go. I think there's a bit of a glitch, so there's a delay there. But regarding my workplace, I've worked on the communication and marketing strategy where we had to look at what we're doing and what needed to be changed, because all along we had been spraying and praying that our communication strategy is effective, where we started monitoring, analyzing it, and making the necessary changes to actually see and yield the results that we had been looking for all along. So it was actually very good to be part of that team to come up with changes that would direct us to meeting our targets and delivering what is expected.
Very, very cool. And I think Lishal, Joanne, and you guys would have done the same thing. Just very quickly, guys, where does strategic thinking fit into strategic planning? Why is it not the same thing? And don't read the slide, because everyone can bloody read the slide. What is the difference between strategic thinking and strategic planning, and where does the one fit into the other? Anyone? Who considers themselves very good at thinking strategically? And it was quite interesting when Deborah spoke about it, is she already added a little bit of strategic thinking into her discussion, and I'm not sure that she picked up on that. It's absolutely, I mean, strategic thinking is an essential feature that forms part of strategic planning. it's way forward thinking. Guys, I think strategic thinking for me is the ability to contextualize where we are now into the ideal future created by the vision. And it was quite interesting when Deborah spoke. It's very much proactive, Mads, 100%. Deborah, when Deborah spoke, she spoke about AI and the influence of AI. And the reality, if organizations aren't thinking that already, they're not thinking strategically. So often strategic thinking is about looking at the world, but realizing that the world that we're in now is very different than the one in the future. So it's about future thinking. It's about anticipating. It's about understanding the vision for the organization and then seeing how this organization fits into the future, fits into that vision. And key is to get an accurate vision of the future. Now, we've had wonderful examples of people who were able to do that. Steve Jobs, in terms of his view of the future. One of my favorite stories ever was Bill Gates, who had said in the 1980s that every single household would have a computer in there, would have a standalone computer in the household. And some American, God help us, senator said, we will only ever need one computer in the world. Bill Gates doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's why we have Republicans in America. But the reality is, if you think of where we are now, I would imagine that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 computers in our house. And we're a household of 4, and that excludes the computers that are in our pockets, our phones, etc. But it's that kind of future thinking that in 1980, Bill Gates already had predicted that every household would have a computer. I mean, the reality is it's about seeing a future that becomes the reality. And the only way we can actually assess whether we can think strategically is by looking back. It's how accurate we were in terms of making predictions about the future. Then we look at strategic leadership, and it's at this stage about our senior executives, and yes, that's why we looked at Sean Summer as our introduction. From a strategic leadership perspective, I think the kinds of things we expect from strategic leaders nowadays, and I say that we expect it from strategic leaders, the simple truth is every single person in an organization needs to think like this anyway. It is to know internally what's going on from a resources and capabilities perspective, but it's also to know externally, is to know what is happening in the world, what is happening in the future, what the plans are for the future in terms of the organization and how it will impact the organization. Guys, what are some of the strategic macro elements that will impact businesses over the next year in South Africa? And beyond the next year. It's not just a CEO thing. Every person in the organization needs to think about it because it doesn't just affect the organization, it affects you individually. What are some of the key strategic things that we need to keep an eye on for ourselves and for organizations over the next year, 5 years, and so forth? Solar power, yeah. Guys, the split between the East and the West, the fact that South Africa has sided with China and Russia, and what will happen from an AGOA perspective, what will happen with our major trade partners, America and EU, and where they will fit into our future, what will happen with the petrol price increases tonight, what will happen with petrol prices going forward, and silly little things. The avian flu. I see Pick n Pay is rationing people in terms of the number of eggs that they can buy. the reality is all of these things become part of our lives on a daily basis. It's stuff that we think of. It's not just strategic leaders. But when you're in a leadership position, this becomes all too important from your own operations and your own successes. Guys, and then also we talk about a world that is complex and ambiguous. Why complexity? What makes the world complex and ambiguous? We'll ask both together. Why complex and ambiguous? Why complex and ambiguous? Why is the world so complex? Yeah, electric cars, boy, can we read about electric cars when we can't even produce electricity to keep our lights? Why complex and ambiguous, guys? What does it mean? Well, boy, that in news today as well, that Toyota has had a major boost in terms of building their hydrogen vehicles. I don't believe there's so much uncertainty. Sorry, I don't believe electric is the future. I believe hydrogen is the future. And we shouldn't electric, we should be going hydrogen. And I've spoken about how Toyota is going hydrogen and the rest of the brands are going electric. And the moment we can get ourselves off oil, I promise you there will be a change in the world immediately. Paint, and somehow it's caused my computer to have a slight paint to have a moment. As if we think of complex refers to the in between the different pest factors, pestle factors, and then the different market factors. Ambiguous is about how difficult it is to make predictions about the future. The other bit of news today is Parliament had that major investigation into government officials and parliamentarians kept under the carpet, because one of the issues when you have a majority, you can hide what politicians are stealing and when they do business with government that they don't declare. I don't know if anyone saw that article. So the ambiguity has to do with the certainty with which we can predict the future. The future is uncertain. They interact and relate to each other. I don't know if I've ever is a little bit of a strange one. I don't know if I ever shared the mountain that exploded in Iceland, the volcano that went off in Iceland. And I don't think I did. And I love this, guys, because I take my art very seriously. That I think I deserve to be paid for. But in 2010, and a volcano exploded. I've lost my mouse. Hold on. A volcano exploded. There's the volcano. Boof, boof. Big explosion. I take my art very seriously, so please be very careful about any criticism. Oh my gosh, that is impressive. That is very, very impressive. A volcano exploded in Iceland. Are you guys not hearing me?
We are.
I think Edel, it's your side, Edel. So, okay, guys. So, in terms of ambiguity, it's our ability to make predictions, admiring the art. Please admire the art. So, a volcano exploded in Iceland, causing an ash cloud to settle over the UK and Europe, causing aeroplanes not to be able to take off in those areas. Sorry, this is interpretive art, remember? Causing people in Cape Town. So this is Iceland. This is Europe and the UK. And this is Cape Town in South Africa. Causing fruit and flower packers in South Africa to be retrenched. So when we talk about the complex nature of the environment, how do you explain to a fruit and flower packer in Cape Town that the reason you're retrenched or the reason you're being laid off and going on to unpaid leave is because a mountain exploded a couple of 1,000 miles away? The connects and the interrelationships within the environment are so vague, are so unpredictable that we don't always know what will happen next. Because how the heck do we connect a mountain exploding in Iceland with somebody losing, a flower packer in Cape Town losing their job, being retrenched? It's one of my favorite examples, and I apologize because it happened in 2010 and most of you would have still been in junior primary. But it shows the connectivity and the connectedness of the world where we are now, where it is so complex that when one thing changes, we don't always know the knock-on effect. And those of you that want to go and read up on it, can go and look at the butterfly effect, you know, the effect of a butterfly flapping its wings. But the knock-on effect is so difficult to predict. And the complexities of the world make it so difficult for strategic leaders to operate. And then also it's about leading through others, and it's also about being the versatilist. And I spoke about what a versatilist is previously. Guys, and then just, it's about anticipating, it's about envisioning, it's about creating this ideal future. And it's about providing inspiration and direction. And the key thing about a vision is that it serves the purpose in terms of almost everything there, because a vision should be inspirational and it should be aspirational. It should inspire people to aspire to be great. But nothing is ever cast in stone. So things change at a moment's notice. Every single plan went out the window the moment the Russia invaded the Ukraine. You could have had the best strategic plans in the world, and those would have had to be re-looked at. Guys, and then just in terms of what we expect from strategic leadership, the first one is know the environment, understand the environment, scan the environment, have a sense of the environment. And that's why it's important every day. And you don't need to spend hours doing that, but have a glance at News 24, have a look at your feed on News 24 or on the Daily Maverick. Personal leadership. What do we understand by personal leadership? In your studies, what personal leadership skills do you use on a day-to-day basis? Does studying part-time take a lot of self-discipline? Guys, you're very quiet and it makes me nervous. Does it take a lot of self-direction, self-management, managing your own time? because those are all personal leadership skills. You don't have someone looking over your shoulder when you study at this level. Certainly, I don't see that as my job whatsoever. There has to be a real self-awareness. There has to be a real awareness of where you are and what you have to do. Studying part-time is one of the biggest learning areas in terms of what you're capable of and where your deficiencies and where your strengths are. Oh gosh, adaptability, Joanne. The reality is no one knows what work will bowl at you at any stage, because you could have the best plans in the world, a little crisis, and you're busy readjusting your plans in terms of your studies. Your studies come second to your work, and that's why I'm always proud of people who progress to postgraduate level and to master's level. Oh yeah, your own responsibilities. My goodness me. I don't think your husbands and girlfriends and wives remind you to study. It's up to you. I certainly am not going to remind you to study. Guys, and then also just understanding the business and its processes, and that's why many CEOs would have transitioned through organizations and have a multifunctional, versatilist view of the world. And then the idea of creating teams. And my favorite is feeling comfortable with change, because nothing is ever set in stone, and those functional skills which you guys would have got through years of experience. So the kinds of attitudes that you need to have. Why do we concern ourselves with society as a strategic leader? I think the simple truth is, guys, that we're at a point in our lives where you cannot adopt the attitude that our only responsibility is to our shareholders and all we need to worry about is about profitability. Every organization has had to transition to the triple bottom line. Every organization has had to adopt the stakeholder model in terms of understanding and knowing who they are responsible to. And the triple and quadruple bottom line is part of your daily operations. Understanding that you need to look after yourself as others, you can have a glance at that. The business, and then that balance between stability and change. Stability, because we need systems and processes in place, because that is essentially why we have policies, but you also need to be able to adapt, otherwise you become Nokia. And then action and reflection. Not every decision you take will be perfect, but it's not to give up. It's about reflecting and correcting and moving on. Guys, did we look at these three concepts previously? Absorptive capacity. Yeah, absorptive capacity. And again, this is now me and my bad attempt at art. Before the current version of hard drives that we have in our machines now, the SSD drives, whatever they're called, the traditional hard drives had this round silver plate. And what would happen is on this round silver plate, you had this, I'm sure I'd done this, but it could be for another class. You had this little thing that looked like an old style vinyl record player and a little head on it, and it was a read-write head. And what would happen is every time you encountered a thing, a person, event, you would create theories that you write and place on your hard drive. Now, the hard drive, in terms of my example there, reflects your brain. So when we think of every time you interact with a person, a thing, or an event, you create a theory that lives on your brain. And we have bazillion theories about things, people, and events, and these theories build up over time, and the more experience you have, the more theories you have about things, and these are mindsets. Now, every time you encounter a particular thing, person, or event, you default to that specific theory, you open that particular file, and you use that file as a framework to interact with that person, thing, and event. Now, it works well, and it's a tried and tested method. So absorptive capacity is the ability to take information in from the environment and build those kinds of theories that live on your hard drive. Adaptive capacity is to, when new information comes in, is to open that theory, and if the new information proves that theory wrong, is to open it like a Word document and rewrite that theory and then resave it. Because if your theories are stuck in the past, you become irrelevant and you're not dynamic. And then managerial wisdom is knowing when to do what, and that comes with age. So often when you encounter a particular business problem and you've been around the block, you have this theory that lives in your head. And you take in information into your head from the environment, absorptive capacity. You open your theory and you draw the wisdom from there to deal with this. Adaptive capacity is if you find out that the theories you have doesn't fit the realities of the world, and you change and you rewrite those theories. I don't know if I've explained that very well, guys. I think I have, because it makes clear sense in my brain. But it's part of being a strategic leader. The wisdom is knowing when to do what and when to use what theory. But adaptive capacity is also realizing when your theory about the world is wrong. Every person has a study technique. Am I right to say that? Every person has a particular study technique. Who has a study technique? Everyone has. And that study technique has built up over time. The problem is that when new information comes in and you keep failing your exams and you're failing your exams and you're failing your exams and you keep defaulting to the same study technique, it means your adaptive capacity is gone. People with adaptive capacities will change that study technique. The same thing in terms of businesses, because it is that was missing. Adaptive capacity was missing, and that's why Kodak doesn't exist anymore. Guys, it's 7 o'clock. These lectures go too quickly.